"Your father was never on business trips," said the woman I had always considered a stranger. It was the day of his funeral. She stood beside me, just outside the chapel, her voice low, almost compassionate. Her face was vaguely familiar, like someone I might have passed in a grocery store and never looked at twice. But now, in her presence, the air around me felt heavy, loaded. And then she added, "He had another family. You weren't his first child." The words didn't make sense. My mind tried to reject them like a foreign object. I stared at her, blinking through the exhaustion of grief and too many unanswered condolences. "What are you talking about?" I managed. She didn't reply right away, just reached into her purse and pulled out an old photograph. My father. A younger version, smiling in a backyard I didn't recognize. Standing beside him was a woman, not my mother, and a little girl, no older than 10, clinging to his arm. "This is us," the woman said. "That's my daughter. And that was our life." I took the photo with numb hands. My breath caught somewhere between shock and anger. "No," I whispered. "That's not possible." She looked at me then, deeply and without hesitation. "I don't want anything from you. I came because you deserve to know who he really was, even if it's too late." Then she walked away. Just like that. I was left standing on the chapel steps, clinging to a photo that rewrote everything I thought I knew about the man lying in that casket. When I got home, I confronted Mom. She was sitting at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cold cup of tea. She looked more tired than I'd ever seen her. "Who is she?" I asked. Mom didn't ask who I meant. She knew. "She's Anna," she said after a pause. "Your father's past. One of many parts one chose to ignore." My mouth went dry. "You knew?" I suspected. There were signs. The trips, the long silences, the cash withdrawals. But he never admitted anything. "And you didn't tell me?" "What good would it have done? I wanted you to have a father, not a scandal." I didn't know what to say. My childhood, already fragile in memory, now felt like glass shattered in a closed room. No air, no way to breathe. I went in my room, sat on the floor, and stared at the photo again. The little girl looked like me. The same cheekbones. Same frown. But she was older than me in the photo, which meant she came first. I wasn't the eldest. I wasn't even the only. I was someone's half-sister, and I hadn't even known she existed. I couldn't sleep that night. The photograph lay on my nightstand, like a ticking bomb. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, the girl who looked like me but wasn't me. A parallel version of my life I had never lived. Morning came gray and silent. Mom hadn't moved from the kitchen table when I came downstairs. She was still in her bathrobe, staring into the same cold cup of tea, as if the night hadn't passed at all. "I want to meet her," I said. She didn't flinch. Didn't look at me. "Are you sure?" "I have to." A slow nod. "Then you'll need this." She opened the drawer next to her and slid out an envelope. Thick. Worn. She pushed it toward me. "Your father kept everything," she said. "Letters. Receipts. Hotel bookings. There's an address in there." I didn't ask why she'd kept it. I just took the envelope and left the house without breakfast. The address led me to a quiet part of town, about 40 minutes away. Suburbs with tall trees and garden fences that had seen better days. The house was small, white, slightly crooked. The paint was peeling at the edges. It didn't scream secret family, but it didn't need to. I hesitated on the porch, then knocked. It wasn't the woman from the funeral who opened the door. It was the girl. The one from the photo. Except she was no longer 10. She was 25, maybe 26, just a few years older than me. Her eyes, the same gray as my father's, widened when she saw me. "You must be." I nodded. Neither of us said the word sister. It hung in the air anyway, unspoken but undeniable. "I'm Claire," she said. I know who you are." She stepped aside, motioning me in. The living room was modest, tidy. Photos lined the mantel, some of her alone, some with Anna. None with my father. Not one. "I didn't know he died," she said quietly, sitting on the arm of the couch. "I didn't know you existed," I replied. She smiled sadly. "That makes us even." I sat across from her, knees stiff, hands cold. Did he ever mention me? I asked. Claire laughed. But it wasn't joyful. It was sharp and bitter. He told me once, she said, that he had another daughter. Said you were smart. Sensitive. Too much like him. Why didn't he ever try to bring us together? Her eyes met mine. Because he didn't want us to compare stories. That stung. Because I knew it was true. We grew up with different versions of him. Mine, present but distracted. Hers, sometimes present, mostly missing. How long were he and your mom together? 27 years, she said. On and off. That knocked the air out of me. That meant he had been with them before he ever married my mother. Did you ever feel like you came second? I asked. She shrugged. Only when he wasn't around for my birthdays. We sat in silence. I think he loved both of us, I said finally. Probably, Claire agreed. But he didn't know how to love openly. He split his life in half and gave us each a piece. I wanted to be angry. But all I felt was grief. Not just for the father I lost, but for the version of him I'd never get to know. Then Claire stood and disappeared down the hall. When she returned, she held a small velvet box. He left this for you, she said. I opened it. Inside was a pendant, a small compass. Same as mine. Only hers was engraved. To Claire, find your way back. I froze. Because my pendant had no inscription at all. The velvet box felt too heavy in my hand for something so small. Claire's pendant had words, a secret message from our father, buried in metal. Mine had nothing. Just a silent charm I'd worn for years without knowing it might have a twin. How long have you had yours? I asked. She tilted her head. Since I was a child. He gave it to me after he missed my 10th birthday. I swallowed. That's the same year he gave me mine. Claire blinked. Of course it is. We sat in that small, quiet living room, wearing the same necklace, one marked with direction, one without, both pretending it didn't feel like a metaphor. You said he left it for me? I asked. Claire nodded. He visited a few weeks before he died. I didn't know he was sick. He didn't say goodbye, he didn't say anything meaningful. Just handed me this box and said, she should have it. It belongs with her now. She paused. And I remember thinking, who's she? I thought maybe he meant my mother. Or some other woman. I didn't think he meant you. Not until I saw your face at the funeral. Something in my chest twisted. I tried to imagine him sitting here. In this living room. After visiting my house the same morning. Saying different words. Telling half-truths. He must have lived with such skillful compartmentalization. He had to pull this off for decades. Or maybe it wasn't skill. Maybe it was cowardice. Do you hate him? I asked suddenly. Claire took a long breath. No, she said. But I don't know how to mourn him either. That struck a nerve. Me neither. We sat in silence again, united by something that had nothing to do with blood and everything to do with damage. After a while, she said, there's something else. She went to the hallway and returned with a thin folder. Brown. Worn. She handed it to me with a strange look. I found this after he died. It was in a lockbox with some documents. I opened it. Inside, photos. Letters. All addressed to a woman named Elena. My mother's name wasn't Elena. I frowned. Who is this? Claire shook her head. That's what I was hoping you could tell me. One photo was of him and the woman, walking arm in arm through a park. Another, a baby in his arms. No date. No names on the back. Maybe it's old, I murmured. Before either of us. But I didn't believe that. The photos looked recent. Within the last 10 years. And the baby, she looked about 2. You think he had another kid? I whispered. Claire didn't answer. She didn't need to. I already knew. The story was still unfolding. Even now. After the funeral. After the tears. After the box and the pendant and the truth about being a second daughter, it still wasn't the whole truth. I stood up, unsure what to do. I need to go, I said. Claire nodded. At the door, I turned back. Do you want to see me again? She didn't hesitate. Yes. That gave me something. A small light in the fog. We weren't whole. But maybe we weren't entirely broken either. Back at home, I pulled out my own pendant again. No words. I turned it over, pressed hard on the back. It clicked. A secret compartment opened. Inside, a folded note. I unfolded it, hands shaking. Just 3 words. She's not done. The note inside the pendant was tiny. Just 3 words. She's not done. No signature. No context. No hint of who she was. And yet, something about the handwriting made my spine stiffen. It wasn't his. I'd seen my father's handwriting 1,000 times on sticky notes, birthday cards, old grocery lists he left on the fridge. It was sharp, fast, all angles. This was soft, careful, almost nervous. I read the note again, lips barely moving. She's not done. I wanted to believe it meant nothing, that it was some mistake. A forgotten message meant for someone else. But it had been inside my necklace. The one I'd worn since I was 10. My thoughts immediately returned to the woman in the photos. Elena. And the baby in her arms. The way my father looked at her, it wasn't unfamiliar. He looked that way at Mom once. When I got home, Mom was in the backyard, trimming dead rose branches. She didn't look up when I stepped onto the porch. I stood there a while, unsure how to start. Finally, I said, "Do you know someone named Elena?" The clippers stopped. She turned slowly. Her face was unreadable. "I haven't heard that name in years," she said quietly. "So you do know her?" "She was your father's ex. Before me." I blinked. "You never mentioned her." "She wasn't part of our lives," Mom said. Or so I thought. I walked closer. He had photos. Letters. A baby. Mom's lips tightened. "She showed up once," she whispered. "Before you were born. Said he'd promised her everything. Said she had something of his." My stomach flipped. "You mean, a child?" Mom nodded. "He swore it wasn't true. That she was unstable. That he'd only been with her for a few months and she was trying to trap him. And you believed him." "I needed to," Mom said. "I was pregnant with you." I didn't know what to say. Another sibling. Another hidden past. Another lie dressed up as loyalty. "I think she left something for me," I said. "A message." Mom looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "Why would she do that?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But I found a note inside my pendant. It's not his handwriting." Mom looked down at the soil, as if searching for answers in the dirt. "I always thought that necklace was a little strange," she murmured. "He never explained why he gave it to you. He just said, she needs it. One day she'll understand." My pulse quickened. "Do you think he meant me, or someone else?" Mom didn't answer. But that said enough. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the note again, over and over until the words lost their meaning. Then I Googled. Elena Harper. Elena plus Charles plus daughter. Elena missing child. Nothing concrete. Until I switched to images. And saw a news clipping from 10 years ago. Local woman disappears after claiming affair with married man, leaves behind toddler daughter. Elena. Her eyes unmistakable. The same as the photo in Claire's folder. The caption said she vanished without a trace in 2013. No foul play suspected. Just gone. The article mentioned a daughter. Name not released. No next of kin. But one quote stood out. From a neighbor. She used to say, "If anything happens to me, it wasn't an accident." She's not done yet. I stared at the screen. She's not done. My pendant. Her words. And for the first time, I asked myself, who is she? Because maybe this wasn't just about Dad anymore. Maybe this was about Mom. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak in the house felt louder. Every shadow deeper. My phone sat beside me on the pillow, the screen still showing Elena's face from that old article. Her eyes looked like they were warning me, or maybe begging. By morning, my decision was made. I had to know. I went down to the kitchen where Mom stood pouring coffee. Same robe. Same distant stare. Like nothing had changed. Like the past hadn't just crawled out of its grave and whispered secrets into our ears. "I found an article," I said. She didn't look up. "About who?" "Elena. The woman Dad was with before you. The one you said disappeared." The coffee pot trembled slightly in her hand. "She's been gone for 10 years, I added. And she said if anything happened to her, it wasn't an accident." Mom finally looked up. There was something cold in her eyes. Not cruel. Just careful. And you think I had something to do with it? I don't want to think that, I whispered. But she left a note. Hidden in my necklace. A message I wasn't supposed to find. Why? Mom sat down, slowly. Like she'd aged a decade in the last minute. She wasn't stable, she said. She showed up pregnant, desperate, saying Charles promised her everything. She tried to confront me once at the grocery store. I was 7 months along with you. She screamed in front of everyone that my baby was the lie. What happened after that? She disappeared. Just like that. I stared at her. And you never thought it was suspicious? Mom's hands tightened around her mug. I didn't have the energy to chase ghosts. But maybe one of them is chasing you now. Her eyes flashed. I lost everything to him, she said. You think I wanted to raise you alone half the time while he played pretend in someone else's living room? You think I didn't scream into pillows every time he left on business? I knew. I knew, and I swallowed it because I thought love meant surviving. I stepped back. That's not love, I said. It was the only kind I was taught. There was silence. Heavy. Sharp-edged. Then she stood and walked to the old filing cabinet near the stairs. She opened the bottom drawer, pulled out a folder, and handed it to me. You want the truth? She asked. Here it is. Inside, emails. Typed letters. Legal threats. All from Elena. Dozens of them. I tried to go through the courts, Mom said, to get a restraining order. But your father convinced me not to. He said she'd lose interest. That she wasn't dangerous, just dramatic. I kept flipping. And then I found the last envelope. Unopened. Postmarked 3 days before Elena disappeared. Addressed to my mother. I looked at her. You never opened it? I couldn't. With trembling fingers, I tore it open. Inside, a short note. You can lie to him, but you can't lie to her. One day she'll wear that compass, and it will point straight to me. There was a photo attached. A baby. Big eyes. Familiar mouth. And scrawled on the back in messy cursive. To her sister. I stared at the photo. The baby in it couldn't have been older than 1. Her eyes wide, her cheeks full, her mouth caught mid-laugh. She looked so alive it made my chest ache. But it wasn't just the image that paralyzed me, it was the note on the back. To her sister. My hand shook. The words blurred. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was blood. A third child. Another half-sister I never knew existed. Not Claire. Not me. Her. I looked up at Mom, who was still watching me like a threadbare sweater waiting to unravel. Why didn't you show me this? I asked, voice trembling. Because I was scared, she said, barely above a whisper. Scared you'd go looking for something that can't be found. You mean the truth? I mean the girl. My stomach turned. Is she alive? Mom didn't answer. She just stared at the envelope, then at the floor, then out the window. I don't know, she finally said. I honestly don't know. But if she is, and she's out there somewhere, she'd be your sister, Mom said softly. Just like Claire. Something sharp bloomed behind my ribs. The photo, the pendant, the message, she's not done, they weren't just warnings. They were a path. A map that someone had left, breadcrumb by breadcrumb. And I had followed them here. I left the room. Mom didn't call after me. In my room, I opened my laptop and typed, Elena Harper missing daughter. 2013. Most of the articles said the same thing. Elena disappeared after a custody dispute. Child believed to be in foster care, no legal claim established by the father. Case unresolved. But then I saw it. A comment on a forum post from 2015. Buried deep. From someone named Need to Know 2013, who wrote, My mom said my name used to be something else before I got adopted. I keep dreaming about a compass. My breath caught. The post had a reply. From another user. Do you remember your birth name? And her response. Marina. I whispered it aloud. Marina. It echoed in the room like it belonged to me. Or maybe it always had. I dug deeper. Created an anonymous profile. Sent a message. Waited. 2 hours later, she responded. Do you have a compass too? I stared at the screen. Then typed, yes. And a note that says, she's not done. Typing. Where are you? She asked. I hesitated. Then sent my city. Another reply came. I'm 40 minutes away. The drive felt longer than it was. 40 minutes stretched like hours. Every red light, every turn, every familiar landmark felt wrong, as if the world around me no longer matched the one I'd grown up in. I clutched the pendant in my hand the whole time. It was warm from my palm, but I couldn't stop touching it, as if it were the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. When I pulled up to the address Marina sent, I expected something dramatic. A cold-looking foster home. A crumbling apartment complex. Instead, it was a modest brick house, surrounded by tidy bushes and a picket fence. Almost too normal. I sat in the car for a full minute before I stepped out. She answered the door before I even knocked, as if she'd been waiting on the other side the whole time. Hi, she said. I stared. Same eyes. My father's eyes. Again. You're Marina, I said. And you're the girl with the other compass. We stood in silence. Two strangers tied together by blood, lies, and a charm on a chain. Come in, she said, and I followed her inside. Her place was small but neat. Warm colors. Family photos, none from before the age of 6. A woman in some of them I assumed was her adoptive mother. No sign of Elena. Not even a hidden frame in the corner. We sat at the kitchen table. I always knew something didn't add up, she said. My adoption papers were sealed. But sometimes my mom would slip up, say something she shouldn't. I started dreaming about this man I'd never met. Holding me. Telling me to find my sisters. I stared at her. You dreamed that? She nodded. I thought it was just trauma. Until I saw a pendant like yours. On a vintage jewelry site. And it clicked. That was the shape I kept seeing in my dreams. I showed her mine. She pulled hers from her shirt. They were identical. Except hers had a note too. I froze. What does it say? I asked. She hesitated. Then unfolded it slowly. It read, "The woman you think is your mother, isn't." My skin went cold. Marina looked up. Do you think it's about Elena? I shook my head. No, I whispered. I think it's about mine. We sat in stunned silence. Why would he lie about that? Marina asked. Why would your mother raise you if you weren't hers? I didn't answer. Because the thought was already blooming inside me like a bruise. Maybe I was the one who didn't belong in that house. Maybe I was the reason for the secrecy. For the whispered arguments. For the way Mom flinched whenever I asked too many questions. Marina reached into a drawer and pulled out a folder. It looked almost identical to the one Claire had shown me. I found this hidden behind a dresser when I was 16, she said. Didn't know what it meant until recently. Inside, more letters. Photos. And one envelope labeled in bold, block letters. Do not give to her until after I'm gone. She handed it to me. The handwriting was familiar. My father's. With trembling hands, I opened it. Inside, a single-page letter. The paper inside the envelope was soft with age, the edges curling. My hands trembled as I unfolded it. My father's handwriting leapt from the page, too familiar, too haunting. He had dated it 5 years ago. To my daughters, it began. Not to Claire. Not to Marina. To my daughters. I read aloud, my voice quiet, breaking on every sentence. I never planned to lie. But I didn't plan to tell the truth either. You were all born from love. That's the only part one knows is real. But love, it turned into shame faster than I expected. And once the shame was there, the secrets grew roots. Claire came first. Her mother and I were young. Careless. I wanted to do the right thing, but I didn't know what that was. Then came Marina. Her mother wasn't like the others. She made demands. She believed promises I never intended to keep. And then there's you. The one I never expected to stay. You don't remember, but you weren't meant to be raised by the woman you call Mom. She was supposed to watch you for a weekend while I figured things out with Elena. That weekend turned into forever. I dropped the page. It fluttered to the floor like something dirty, like something broken. What? I whispered. Marina was still frozen. You're not her daughter? I shook my head. I don't know. I picked the letter back up. She told me it would confuse you to know the truth. Said if you called her Mom long enough, it would become true. Maybe she was right. Maybe it did. But I see you wearing that necklace now and I wonder, did it lead you here? If it did, then maybe there's still time. Your sisters are out there. You were never supposed to meet them. But maybe you should. Maybe you need to, before the rest comes out. Because she's not done. And neither am I. There it was again. She's not done. Every time I read those words, they changed meaning. Sometimes it felt like a warning. Sometimes a threat. Now, it felt like a confession. I looked at Marina. Her face pale. Her mouth pressed into a thin line. I was just a weekend? I whispered. And suddenly, everything made sense. Why Mom never told me stories about my birth. Why there were no baby pictures before a certain age. Why she flinched when I asked about that scar on my shoulder, the one she said I got when I was a toddler. But she'd never been able to tell me how. She kept you, Marina said. She just kept you. A memory bubbled up, vague, disconnected. A woman yelling through a car window. Me crying in a booster seat. Someone pulling me out of a stranger's arms. Was that a dream? Or something real I'd buried? I stood. I have to go back, I said. Marina nodded. Will you tell her? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. Back in my car, I stared at the letter in my lap. My father's words echoing again and again. She was supposed to watch you for a weekend. But what if she never gave me back? What if the person I loved most had taken me and never told anyone? The house was too quiet when I came in. It was late, past midnight. I expected Mom to be asleep. But there she was sitting at the kitchen table, still in her robe. A single lamp on. The same teacup in her hands. I knew you'd come back, she said. I didn't sit. I placed the letter in front of her. Neatly. Slowly. Like it was evidence at a trial. She didn't reach for it. I read it, I said. All of it. Her hands didn't tremble. You knew? I asked. She nodded. I could barely breathe. You were only supposed to watch me. A long silence. Then, finally, she whispered, yes. I stared at her. Why didn't you give me back? Her eyes welled. Because he wasn't going to fight for you. Because Elena had already left. And because I loved you. I swallowed hard. But I wasn't yours. You were mine in every way that mattered. Her voice cracked on that line, but I didn't let it break me. You told me I was born into this family. That I was his first child. You built a life on that lie. No, she said. I built a life on love. The lie was just the scaffolding. I wanted to scream. Instead, I sat down across from her. You took me, I said. You stole me. I saved you, she whispered. I stared at her. From what? She didn't answer. Maybe there was no answer that could make it right. Did Elena know? I asked. She found out, Mom said. Years later. She came to get you. I told her I'd call the police. She left. My stomach turned. And then she disappeared. She left a letter, Mom added. It said she was going somewhere no one could follow. I thought she'd taken her own life. I didn't know about Marina. I looked at her long and hard. And then I asked the question I had been avoiding all day. Did you ever regret it? She hesitated. Every day. And also, never. That broke something in me. You should have told me, I said. I know. There's more, I said. Claire. Marina. They want to know you. She blinked. After everything? They're not looking for justice. They're looking for family. Silence stretched. Then she said, and what about you? What are you looking for? I didn't know the answer until it came out of my mouth. Truth. Mom nodded. Then you found it. She stood and walked to the hallway. I followed her to the linen closet. She pulled down a box from the top shelf. Inside, baby photos. Me. But also a bracelet engraved. Marina. 2010, I kept it, she said. In case I ever had to give you back. Tears welled in my eyes. You still can, I whispered. No, she said gently. You're grown now. The choice is yours. I looked at the bracelet. Then at her. Then at the reflection in the mirror behind us, a girl I used to know, and the woman who raised her. I didn't know what forgiveness looked like. But maybe this was where it started.